All that I want for Christmas is good quarterback play for the Auburn Tigers. Yes, sir. What's up, guys? Welcome into this edition of the Uptempo Podcast. As always, I'm your host, Dustin Smith. USF quarterback Byron Brown announced yesterday that he intends to hit the transfer portal. Not a surprise to anybody that's been following the situation, but you got to know what conversations are going to come from something like that. We'll get into all of that today on today's episode of the Uptempo Podcast. Before we get started, man, do me a favor, like the video, sub to the channel if you're listening over on Spotify, Apple, wherever you get your audio. Turn on those automatic downloads, leave a 5-star review, follow us over there. We continue to grow across all platforms. November, we crushed it. December, we're crushing it. It's been awesome, man. Thank you guys so much for doing that. And again, big percentage of people continue to watch the show, come back and watch the show time and time again that aren't subscribed. It's right over there, man. Hit that subscribe button. It's absolutely free. It won't cost you a thing. But let's get into today's topic, a topic that I have learned as I have done this podcasting thing here. Gets people a little fired up. Did you know that people get emotional when you discuss quarterback? If I do an episode about defensive tackle or linebacker or a wide receiver, the comments are usually pretty measured. Everyone says, great episode, man. Yeah, good points. But boy, when we talk about quarterback, it can get all over the place. So I'm fired up to do just that, man. Let's get into it. So we know that Alex Golesh coached at USF the last 3 years, and his quarterback at that time was Byron Brown. And if you go look at the numbers, if you watched any of the games this year like I did, because USF played a lot on like Thursday and Friday nights, there was a lot of nights where you could come home on a weeknight and South Florida was on. You turn it on and you're like, golly, look at this 6'4", 200-plus pound quarterback, number 17 for South Florida. That's Byron Brown. Is electric. I went back and just typed his name in to my Twitter account to see how often I posted about him last year, having no idea that that his head coach was going to be Auburn's next head coach. And I tweeted quite a bit about him, and that's because the kid's electric, the kid's dynamic, and it's hard to ignore what Byron Brown brings to the table. He's a big play waiting to happen. So you know what's going to come from that. If a Group of 5 head coach gets promoted and gets hired to an SEC team, and his quarterback that was with him was super successful and still has eligibility, the obvious question is that quarterback coming with you? And then if you're an Auburn fan, you start looking at the room and you're asking, well, okay, well, what do we have in here? Ashton Daniels has recently announced his intention to hit the transfer portal. I think that kind of tells you something, right? They're not going to stand pat at quarterback. I think Ashton Daniels was most likely told there's going to be something coming in here, if not multiple, right? So, and Ashton Daniels, I think he did a good job at Auburn this year. He came to Auburn not even really anticipating playing and ended up starting the Iron Bowl, right, and held it down. So, shout out to Ashton, man. I think that like every quarterback under Hugh Freeze, he was put in a pretty bad situation. I think that Derek Nix did a good job of kind of, changing some things up and putting Ashton in the best situation to succeed when you consider all the circumstances that they were facing. So shout out to Ashton. I wish him the best in his future. He was a model teammate in his year at Auburn, and he handled himself well. But this is the way this goes. And this is one of the things, too, where when you look at it and the players wanted to be compensated. And for a long time, I didn't start the show until post NIL, but I've long been on that train of the players need to get their cut. I feel like a lot of the mess that's going on today in college football couldn't have been avoided if you would have slapped the name Newton on the back of those blue jerseys in 2010, if you would have slapped Tebow on the back of those 15 jerseys for those 3 to 4 years there at Florida and actually given them that cut. I don't think that you would have been in the boat today if you would have had a little bit of foresight, but obviously that's a completely different discussion. But when you get to this point, and it's kind of like pro sports, it goes both ways. The players, sure, they have a little bit more freedom of movement. They're allowed to do some things, and they're more empowered than ever. But the portal also gives coaches the ability to just kind of cut guys a little bit easier than they maybe would have been able to in the past. So, and I'm not saying that Ashley Daniels got cut, but I'm sure that there were conversations that were had where like, hey, you might not really have a legit shot at being the starter next year. We're going to bring some guys in, and we're trying to keep Deuce here as well, and he has a better shot. So, wishing Ashley Daniels the best, but he's eliminated from the equation now. So, and Jackson Arnold, as expected, has announced his intention to hit the portal, which just leaves Deuce Knight. It just leaves Deuce Knight, and then Alex Golesh's former quarterback, who was a top 5 rated Pro Football Focus quarterback last year, passed for 3,000 yards, ran for over 1,000. So the production's there. That guy enters the portal. So Auburn's only got one quarterback on roster. And then you have this guy in the portal who was super successful with Auburn's new head coach at his previous head stop. It doesn't take a genius to figure out where this is probably going. So the argument, I guess, the discussion that has gone on amongst Auburn fans is Deuce or Byron Brown, Deuce or Byron Brown. And that was a big thing. And if you're not on social media, like, good for you. Don't be. I wouldn't be if I didn't have the show. But that was a big thing happening yesterday. It was this big argument going on about which one's the better option for Auburn moving forward, and yada yada. So I've said this a couple of times. I'm going to come on here and try to speak it with some clarity today. Now, before we get into the reality of the situation and kind of talk about different scenarios or whatever, I'm just going to give you my Christmas wish list. If Santa came down and said, Dustin, how do you want the Auburn quarterback situation to play out? Okay. Byron Brown has 1 year of eligibility left. He's obviously been productive with Alex Golesh at South Florida. Deuce Knight has played in one game as a redshirt freshman. He will be a redshirt freshman next year. He played in one game, and he was electric versus the FCS Mercer team. So we have a large sample size of Byron Brown, albeit at a lower level, but you've got a lot of film. And it's not like Alex Golesh is bringing everybody from South Florida with him, right? There's going to be some guys come when that portal opens, and we saw a couple of guys in that class, right, in the high school class. But it's not like he's going to bring the whole team. It's not like he brought his whole entire South Florida high school class. He's brought the guys that he thought could translate. So if he brings Byron Brown, that means that he thinks that it can translate to the SEC. And this is a guy who, again, was just OC at Tennessee and was successful at Tennessee under Josh Heupel not too long ago. So I feel comfortable in Alex Golesh's evaluation of if a player, particularly quarterback, is ready and has the ability to come to the SEC or not. If he makes the decision that Byron Brown can play at this level, I'm going to trust Coach Alex Golesh because he's already coached quarterbacks at this conference, and he's done it recently, and he did it at a very, very high rate. That's why he got the South Florida job. So with all of that being the background, if it was up to me, and if this was just a video game, and I could just set it up the way I wanted to, Brown comes in for 1 year. Now, before I say this, I do want to say I would like a real QB competition. I was texting back and forth with my guy Blake Lane a minute ago. Go follow Blake over on the Voice of College Football. We both agree. We just want a real competition, and I think most Auburn fans agree with that. Whoever gets the biggest NIL check should not just automatically get the starting job at Auburn, or because he's pressing, or whatever ridiculous things we've heard in the past as to why starters have been named starting quarterbacks at Auburn. I think everyone wants a real competition, and whoever is the best in practice and the best in the scrimmages come out on top and be named QB1. So when I lay out the scenario I'm about to lay out, please understand that like whoever's the best in practice, like I don't want there to be an automatic starter. Okay. But Santa Claus comes down and asks me, Dustin, if just how all this play out, how do you want it to go? Byron Brown comes in for one season. He knows Alex Golesh's offense. It's not like there's going to be this heavy learning period for him, right? If he was to come in the January portal and then be available for spring football, which now with the new rules, that's the only way that it can happen, I guess. There's not going to be this big learning curve of the offense. He knows Alex Golesh's offense. It's going to be about building a rapport with teammates and that kind of stuff. Bring him in for 1 year. If he wins the job fairly. Now, if Deuce is just a better QB in practice, then name Deuce the starter. If Deuce is just better in scrimmages, then, hey, then there's your guy, right? That's been a problem at Auburn in the last couple of years. Outside factors have determined who the starting quarterback is going to be. Just let the best man win. But in a perfect world, if you could bring in Byron Brown, he plays well. He plays at a high level for Auburn for 1 year. And look, Deuce was QB3 for a large portion of the year. And I'll ask y'all this. Let me know in the comments. How much do you trust Hugh Freeze in his quarterback development? How much do you think that Deuce Knight was truly developed this year? Based off of what we saw, I would say I'm a little skeptical. I'm skeptical. I don't think he probably didn't receive the best coaching this season from Hugh Freeze and that staff. So what if you bring in Byron Brown for 1 season? He plays well. He plays at a high level. Deuce Knight is QB2. QB2 is a redshirt freshman in the SEC. Not a bad gig, by the way. You actually blow out some of the teams you're supposed to blow out, and it allows Deuce the opportunity to get into those games on top of just the increased reps from actually being QB2 every week in practice versus QB3 scout team, whatever he was doing last year. So he gets a bump up in practice. He's one play away from being the starter. So if he is ever going to be the quarterback that we think he's going to be, anybody that watches football knows the backup quarterback has to prepare like he's a starter. So when he gets his chance, he can perform like the starter. Remember when TJ Finley said, I was the backup, so I just really wasn't preparing. And now TJ Finley's in the portal for like the 7th time, right? Like that mentality is not a successful mentality. So if Deuce Knight is that guy, he would be preparing every day, every week like he was a starter anyway, in case something did happen to Byron Brown, which is possible with that physical style he ran for 1,000 yards. You're going to run it that much in the SEC, it's possible that you could get hurt. And then you would have Deuce Knight right there anyway. But let's say that Byron Brown comes in next year. He plays at a high level. He plays well. He understands the offense. Deuce is getting the reps at QB2. Brown can teach him Golesh's offense. He can get a year as QB2 learning Golesh's offense. And then next year, Brown graduates. He's out of eligibility. And there's been a whole year of prepping Deuce Knight in this offense. And he is now in position to be your starter in 2027 as a redshirt sophomore quarterback. That's 2 years. That's only 2 years of waiting. I understand that Deuce Knight was a 5-star, but it's still a quarterback position. Quarterback, offensive line, like there's some of these positions, it might take a couple years to see even a high-rated recruit on the field. You have an example at Michigan of what happens if you stick a quarterback on the field too early, despite how talented he is. And anyone that's ever watched me knows that Deuce Knight is up there in terms of players that I have gone and watched in high school and came back and given like a report on. He's probably 3rd. I think Cam Coleman was the highest grade I gave, Keldrick Falks the 2nd, and then Deuce Knight's probably the 3rd. Like he's right. Like I have not shied away from how much I believe in Deuce Knight's potential. So for everyone arguing back and forth which guy it could be, I think for Auburn, there was an easy route to where both guys are on the roster next year. Now, that's just my wish. That's just my Christmas wish, right? I don't know. I don't know how Deuce Knight feels. Deuce Knight might feel like I want an opportunity to start next year. And if you bring in your guy, then I'm not going to get that chance and I'm out and blah, blah, blah. But the way I look at it, and I'm not these guys, I'm not in their shoes, and I completely understand that. But the way I look at it, there is a path to bring in a guy like Byron Brown, still keep Deuce Knight on your roster, and him still be the quarterback of the future moving forward. Why in the world are we at this point right now where if a guy is not playing at the quarterback position by year 1 or year 2, that he transfers or we give up on him and he's a bust, he's not going to be there? That's not realistic, especially in the SEC. Look at all the expectations that were on Arch Manning this year. And look at the talent that everyone believed him that he had. It took him 6-7 games, about half of the season, to really, he kind of found his groove in the back half of the season for Texas. That's not surprising. He's a first-time starter in the SEC. The league is really hard, and they also started the season playing on the road at Ohio State. Like, here's your first. I know he had started some games before with Ewers hurt, but they were like, here, Arch, here's your first official start as QB1 in the future of the Texas program. Go to the horseshoe and play Ohio State's defense. That's tough. And then you have the SEC gauntlet ahead of you. So I wasn't surprised that Arch Manning got better as the season went on, as his reps increased and he got his feet up underneath him a little bit. That's the quarterback position. That's the way that it works a lot of times, especially at high levels, especially in the Southeastern Conference. So there's a lot to be determined. You know, Deuce could transfer and somebody could come and outbid Auburn for Brown, and this whole episode could mean absolutely nothing. But as we sit here today, this kind of being the big discussion amongst the fan base, I'm just here to say we don't have to argue about all this. Like, y'all can argue whatever you want, but there's definitely a path to where all of this can logically play out fine for Auburn. And for anybody, you know, and if you're arguing specifically like that Brown sucks and Deuce is better, or Deuce sucks and Brown's better, look, I think they're both really good. And I think that the eligibility is separated enough because I asked this question. What Power 4 team, what SEC team, what Big Ten team, what big high-level team is going to just give Deuce Knight the job next year because of what he did versus Mercer? No matter what, I would assume he's going to find himself in a competition unless he steps down to G5. If he goes to a Tulane or let's use South Florida for an example, just to be funny, or a South Florida with Ryan Hartline, if he was to go somewhere like that, then maybe he could kind of get the guarantee like, you know, you're going to be the starter, bro. But if he wants to stay at SEC Big Ten level, at the very least, even if he transfers, I would imagine he's going to have to battle for that spot. I don't think anybody's just going to give it to him based off of one start versus Mercer and then his potential. And as somebody who's a humongous Deuce Knight fan, I wouldn't automatically give him the reins next year. And to reiterate, that's why I'm all in favor of a real competition. But listen, I know it gets super, super emotional when you talk about quarterback. I'm just trying to kind of look at this thing logically. I know that's really kind of the way I've tried to look at this whole situation since Hugh Freeze has got fired. It's just to be logical, be objective here, and wait and see how the whole process plays out. We got about a week and a half here for this transfer portal opens up, and I can't wait because then it's going to be absolutely crazy. It's going to be crazy for college football, but for Auburn in particular, this is going to be just a madhouse when the portal opens up of guys leaving, guys you thought were leaving or actually going to end up staying, guys coming in. It's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to have you covered right here on the Uptempo podcast. Listen, this is going to be the last episode for the rest of the week. We know we've got Christmas coming up and going to be spending time with the family and everything like that. So I will resume the next regular episode. I will drop it Friday afternoonish, early Friday afternoonish. I'll wake up and I'll record it Friday morning. Unless something just pops and we have to, but I'm begging Auburn, give us Christmas Eve and give us Christmas of a little bit of a break here. But if you still want some up-tempo content, this is the way to do it. Level up today, man. Sign up for these memberships. $3.99 a month to get you that JV squad. $5.99 a month to get you to that varsity squad. You get members-only live chat, member shout-out, priority reply to comments, early access to videos, recruiting update videos. You get in the game day group chat, gameplay with me in that varsity squad. You get in that varsity squad, I give you my Xbox gamer tag. We can hop on Madden, EA, College Football 26. Hey, Red Dead, if the new Grand Theft Auto ever drops, I'm down for all of it, and discounted merchandise as well. This is the best way to support the show. We're an independent operation over here, so this is the best way to help us out, man. The best way to support us is by signing up for those memberships. Your super chats and all that kind of stuff helps as well. They got that hype button down there. Hit that. They got a million things that you're trying to keep up with now as a content creator. Look, I love you guys. I appreciate you. Just hit that thumbs up button for me. Subscribe. That'll be enough if you want to help out by signing up for the memberships. Most of all, have a good Christmas, man. Like, enjoy your time with your family, and Jesus is king. Jesus is king. God bless, and War Damn Eagle.